Alright, we got Jamar Pop Hunter here with us on Rip and Go. Thanks for sitting down with me today, boss. How you doing?
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I'm doing well.
Appreciate it, man. Shoot, let's get right into it, man. Where were you born and raised?
Harlem, New York. Born and raised in Harlem, right here. We actually in Bill Rob right now. This is my old stomping grounds. But you know, my family come from a long legacy between the Harlem and the Duncan family, significant in the neighborhood. But I'm born and raised in Harlem, man.
Got you, man. What part of Harlem is that we in? You know, if people ain't familiar with Bill Robinson Park, what part of Harlem?
I mean, it's uptown. It's uptown in Harlem. You know, but 150th Street between 7th and 8th. Now it's Adam Clayton Powell, and you know they done gentrified it and all that.
Yeah.
Adam Clayton Powell and the Frederick Douglass Boulevard, but we between 7th and 8th, 150th Street.
Got you. What was it like growing up in Harlem as a child?
Beautiful, man. I mean, you know, it was always love. You know, like I said, I come from a big legacy. So between the Harlems and the Duncans, it was nothing but love in the neighborhood. Never had no worries, none of that kind of stuff. We never knew we was broke, you know, none of that kind of stuff. It was just beautiful.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. We all grow up in poverty, but it's beautiful when you don't even realize it. How was your upbringing? Were you brought up both parents, single parent? What was that upbringing like?
Upbringing was beautiful. My pops was in the street. My mom's held it down. But, you know, my pops was around, you know, but at the same time, my pops was more the kind of dude, he would come around and carry the trophy on championship day. You know what I'm saying? He wouldn't necessarily come to the game and all that kind of stuff, but it was always all love. My pops, I look just like my pops, I walk just like my pops, I talk just like my pops. I'm a direct descendant of my pops' legacy. You know what I'm saying? So I'm appreciative, you know, I'm appreciative for what he did provide. And as he got older, I got to understand that certain times in life is not necessarily things that you can control. Some things are beyond your control. But I'm glad that he was always around. I'm glad that he always kept us straight. I'm glad he always kept it real with us. And I'm glad he did what he could do. Because as a parent, I understand that life is rough, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You can't really ask for much more, man. What would you say were some of the benefits of having him in your life, and when he was present and active and on you? What would you say you benefited from? How would you say you benefited from that? Because everybody doesn't even have pops that come around at all, get them any game or anything like that. So what would you say were the benefits to that? One
of the things that was cool is that with my pops was one of the dudes in the neighborhood that the dudes in the neighborhood looked up to. You know what I'm saying? So my pops, when we walk the street, if we walk 5 blocks in the street, it took us 15, 20 minutes to walk 5 blocks in the street, just because there was always love. Everybody, hey Joe, you know. Then one thing with my pops, my pops thing was he would say rolling with it, and when he said rolling with it, everybody, the call and response was good to be here. So when we rolled down the street, it would be like, yo, Joe, you know, and then he'd be like, rolling with it, and then you hear the rolling with, good to be here. Or he, and even back in the days, he was a number man. Yeah. So when he came through, his thing was baby waist, license plates, dreams and schemes, get down. That was his thing. And when he hit the block and people did that, you know, they came through like roaches or whatever. So it was like I got to see the hood from a different element, and I got to see the hood from an intimate element, because I got to be what part of the chosen crew. Right, you know, and I consider my pops and my Hunter legacy and my Duncan legacy to be like a direct legacy. They created a great legacy in Uptown Harlem.
Got you. I follow. When did you start getting into basketball, and what piqued your interest?
Well, I was playing football first, and what actually piqued our interest is that Tony Rosa had got to my mom's or whatever, and Tony Rosa was the one who had actually put us on the basketball, because me and my brother, we was playing football. You know, on those Sundays, you know, many people didn't want to see the Hunter brothers on our side in football. You know, actually, just to even tell a quick story, when we played football together, people wouldn't even run to our side. That's how tough we was on the football tip. So I was a free safety. My brother was an outside linebacker. So in order for us to make the play, we had to run to the other side of the field to make the play. But you know, but what was the question again?
What you said, Tony Rosa.
Tony Rosa.
When was it that you, like, what age or what grade did basketball even become interesting to you?
At 11 years old is when we started playing basketball. Tone was from Drew, which is about 5 blocks away from where we grew up at. So in Tone,
you talking about Coach Tony Rosa?
Coach Tony Rosa and Rocky Rosa. great. They did a great service to the neighborhood. They saved thousands of kids and stuff like that. And they was actually doing this since early 20s, probably even late teens.
Man.
I'm not even sure, but they were actually kind of our age and were our coaches, and actually
still rocking and rolling to this day.
Still rocking. I got pictures and stuff from back in the days when they showing me how to shoot with my left hand. We playing the PAL. We used to meet Tone at his crib. We was actually part of the initial Mustangs group. Like, we used to meet Tone at his crib. When we came to Tone crib, you had to be quiet or his pops was gonna wild out on you and all that kind of stuff. But it was great, man.
Wow, that's legendary right there. So how did you hone your game growing up? You say you started hooping around 11. What were some of the things you did to hone your game growing up?
Staying in the park. That's pretty much what we did. And at the same time, my brother, it used to be me, my brother, my man Ted Wheeler, and Bernard Wheeler. Actually, Ted Wheeler, his son, is the starting point guard for the University of Kentucky right now.
Okay,
yeah, Savir Wheeler's my man Ted Wheeler's son.
Okay.
So we grew up playing together right here in Bill Robb. We grew up honing our skills every day out here, just getting busy, getting better with each other. We wasn't always the most celebrated people and all that kind of stuff, but people know that when they played against us, they was in the dogfight. That was something that Tone taught us. That was something that I grew up knowing as what my family always taught us, that you got to go out there and scrap and go and get yours and stuff like that. And that was just something that we grew up understanding.
That's real. What players did you grow up wanting to emulate once you started hooping?
Back in the days, well, our game is not similar, but back in the days, the Dancing Doogie.
Okay.
Dancing
and those who ain't
Doogie.
Familiar with Dancing Doogie, can you tell us who that is?
Dancing Doogie played in the Rucker. Dancing Doogie was so nice when he played in the Rucker. Dancing Doogie would get 40 on you, right? His butter rolls never touched the rim, never touched the neck, nothing. He would get 40 on you and wouldn't even sweat. He would bring Little Malik, and he would bring his wife at the time to the games. They would come super dapper, super fresh. That's how arrogant is that. You coming to play against the best people in the city and all that kind of stuff. You bring in your people, they sitting right behind the bench and all that kind of stuff. You lace them up and go off for 40 without sweating. Dancing Doogie was one of the most amazing basketball players I ever got a chance to see play. And it was even great that my brother was able to coach his son, Malik, at Watley. So I had got a chance to build a friendship with the Dancing Doogie and just got a chance to tell him how great we thought he was.
Right. That's tough, man. Life coming at you full circle. I know you mentioned Tony Rosa. Were there any coaches in your formative years prior to high school that helped you get better and sharpen your fundamentals? Or were you primarily honing your skill set with your guys on your block and with Coach Rosa? Well,
prior to high school, I played with Tone. I started basketball with Tone. I played with Tone until I was about maybe 13, 14, and then I made a transition to play with Gauchos. I played with Dave Jones over at Gauchos. Mr. Page was over at Gauchos. I had Felipe was over there. Wally Lynch was over there. Dennis Keenan was over there. Like, we had a mob.
Right.
Eric Harris was over there. We had a mob over there. So I did that for about 4 years because Tone, they did local basketball, but I needed to travel at a certain point, and someone had put us on to that or whatever. So it wasn't me being disloyal, but I'm like, I needed to go and do my thing and spread my wings. So I went and played with Gauchos for a couple years, and we did small fry. I did little lad and all that kind of stuff. We used to work out every day. I used to play super biddies. I played midgets. When I did play with one group, I always practiced with two groups. So that's how I just got better, just putting in the work. Even some days I would come home and I would be on the couch sleeping and wake up in the cold sweat like, oh, I got a game. And my moms would be like, boy, if you don't lay down. But it was just intense when we was kids, and that's one thing that I can't relate to now, how some of these kids just don't want to work hard and all that. It was just a thing that we did. Nobody ever had to tell us that this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Right. Man, that's intense right there. What were some of the fundamentals that seemed to be very, very important when you were a young kid? Like me working in basketball nowadays, I would emphasize very much your footwork, your pivoting, being able to step with your inside foot on your off the dribble jump shots. That's something I really harness on. I say feet first to almost all the young fellas. What was something that would always ring off in your head hearing from a particular coach about a certain fundamental?
Well, there's one particular thing that's kind of lost in this day and age as far as basketball, but the pull-up. The pull-up, a lot of kids don't do the pull-up. They either want to boogie and try to get all the way to the cup, or they want to think they Steph Curry and shoot the long ball,
right,
or whatever. But that pull-up, if you can get to the free throw line, you can get to the middle of the court and get that pull-up, especially if you got a little bit of elevation. Right. I had some good elevation. That's one thing. Even Julius Hodge, he grew up playing here in this park too. Steve Hodge's brother was always our fifth man. And Jules used to always tell me, your pull-up was mean. He used to be here sitting on his basketball, and he used to tell me, like, listen, when I used to watch the game and stuff like that, your pull-up was mean. So that's even one thing that the kids, they be missing right now. They either want to get to the cup and try to see if they could even do some old crazy layup, or they want to try to shoot the long ball that they ain't really got. If you can perfect that pull-up, you can get 10 good points on an easy pull-up. Just by somebody giving you some space and you just popping that open jumper.
I agree with you, man. And unfortunately for these kids, they play in the era where the coaches and the people that hire the coaches see basketball as a mathematical equation, and they want to eliminate the pull-up and tell them, yo, take the 3 or take the 2. It's a higher percentage shot.
Right.
All of this other stuff. But I agree with you. Sometimes that pull-up is a layup for certain guys. After you done repped it out enough times, it's a layup.
Exactly.
What high school did you attend? Going straight out of middle school, what high school did you decide you wanted to go to coming straight out?
I went to Rice.
Okay.
I went to Rice for my first 3 years, and the reason why I laugh and all that, because Rice back in the days, it's not even like high school is now. Back in the days, you know, that's one thing people always say, oh, when you get older, you always say back in the days. But I can only speak to what I know of. You know what I mean? But back in the days when we was at Rice, it was crazy.
I was just about to ask you, was Rice a powerhouse that we know it to be back then in your time, or was it?
Rice was crazy, especially when Rice merged with Talentine. You know, even one of my good friends, and I'm sure that you know of him too, who was at Rice with me and was on the same waiting line with me, is Homicide, Corey Williams. Corey Williams.
Heard he was Varsity and all this other stuff.
Played Varsity with me. I played Varsity. Even when I left, I was at Rice for 3 years, but I didn't even know that I needed to leave. That's how, you know what I mean? That's how the thing was back in the days. We didn't know what the next step should be because nobody before us did it.
Right.
So we just lived our life the way that life was happening. But I got to a point to where as I was a junior and my older brother Joe, he was like, nah, you can't stay here for another year because you won't be able to get that scholarship that you need to go to college. So one day we was at Bradhurst Park playing, scraping, you know, had a great day, came home, and then my brother walked in the crib and he told my moms, I didn't even know, he told my moms, he was like, yo, I'm transferring him to King.
Wow.
And she was like, what are you talking about? That's a public school, you can't go to King. She's like, I'm transferring him to King. He's like, it's the best move for him. And then she like, well, let me think about it. And she thought about it for the rest of the day or whatever, and then the next day, she was like, all right, cool, we're going to transfer him to King. So then I left Rice. I didn't mean to cut you off. I left Rice. I went to King. We won the city championship, right? I got MVP, and then we played against Rice in the States.
We're gonna go over all of that. I wanna that's tough right there. I wanna go back to when you say how tough it was at Rice. Going into your freshman year. So I heard you say it merged. No one's ever even broken it down to me like that about Talentine and Rice merging. So when Talentine closed, everybody went over to Rice?
It wasn't technically a merger. But the thing is, you know how it is. There's handlers, there's basketball schools, there's certain schools, kids, Riverside kids, you go to certain schools. The Gaucho kid, you go to certain schools. So it was even like back in the days when Talentine closed down, the whole team came over to Rice. So imagine already have a warehouse full of kids already, and then you get Talentine, was arguably one of the best schools in the whole city. Right. Get their whole team come over to Rice after that. It's like, the thing is like at a certain point, it's kind of like you priced out of the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? And my thing is like, all right, I can stay here and I can play Varsity B and be very comfortable playing Varsity B and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, but let's just shoot our shot. You know what I'm saying? And see what we could do with 1 year. You know what I'm saying? One shot, one kill. We went and got it.
So what would you say was your How was your approach your freshman year? Did you play what, freshman?
Freshman year, I played freshman. My sophomore year, I played JV, and then my junior year, I played Varsity B.
Did you ever think along those, like, obviously these are different times nowadays? Freshmen are almost guaranteed to play varsity and all this other stuff. When after your freshman year and you played freshman, did you think you were playing varsity the following year, or you thought there was no shot at it?
It was no. I keep it all the way a buck. It was no wiggle room for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I keep it all the way 100. I was a late bloomer, you know. But I understood that if I kept working hard, that I could keep on moving up the ranks. So at least make myself proud. When I was even in high school, my thing wasn't even to be in high school to try to get a scholarship. I had no idea that I had no idea that was the concept. How crazy is that? I had no idea that when I was in high school as a freshman that I was supposed to be playing for these accolades. I was just showing up to play the game like I'm gonna just go as hard as I could and I'm gonna just have fun.
When did the light go off in your head that, hey, I'm hoping to get a free ride to school?
When I was a junior.
Wow. You have no idea.
The year when I was going into my senior year.
Unbelievable.
I had no idea. And even at that stage it was kind of vague, because even when I was in King, we lost at the end of the season. We only lost 2 games. Right. I made a big name for myself. I was out here, I was killing. I was doing my thing. You know what I'm saying? And anybody who says anything different in 94, you know what I'm saying, is a liar. You know what I'm saying? Anybody. And I can just say that with all honesty. You know, I was killing. But I didn't know that you're supposed to be pursuing school. School's supposed to be pursuing you. I'm supposed to be asking the coach, have I been getting letters? Like,
right.
We didn't know that until what was an event? What was the event they used to have back in the days? They used to have an event back in the days. It was an all-star classic. And my brother and my crew, they had put together a bio and my stats and all that, and tapes and all that, and they was running down on Jim Behan and all that kind of wheelchair classic. Wheelchair classic. Everybody understand what I'm talking. And you know those kind of people that came out the wheelchair classic. My brother and my man Ted, they running down on Jim.
Ahead of their time.
Running down on Jim Behan and them with tapes, my stats. My man Bernard Wheeler, his stats or whatever.
Can you tell us how you put
need
tapes
these
together
guys.
Back then in the 90s?
A VHS tape. You had to try to find a way to splice it the best way possible. And the thing is, these kids, they ain't know how to really put it together. We just found the best 5 minutes of your game or something like that, and that was like considered your highlight reel.
Wow.
Hopefully you got a couple buckets within that 5 minutes. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't no chop it up and all like up. Nah, it wasn't
just
none of that.
Picking a good part of a game.
And my aunt, she worked where she worked at or whatever. She had the mailroom on lock, and outside they used to send the tapes out and stuff like that to the schools or whatever. But we didn't know that until I was a senior.
That's absurd, man. Mm-hmm. That's absurd.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, now you go over the King your senior year. You had that year that you just said. Obviously, y'all won city title, but going into that senior year, how are you approaching it? What were you doing in the summer going into your senior year? Are you approaching it kind of animalistically because you're thinking like, yo, this is my last hurrah, I'm trying to go to school for free? What was your approach that senior year?
I'll be honest, when my senior year, I was an absolute dog. Like, we turned almost like nutty, you know what I mean? Like, we turned nutty like even going into that senior year, because we know that we had one opportunity to be able to get it right. And we knew that we had to make up for a lot of time, because it wasn't like no reclass and all that kind of stuff. It was like we knew that the one option that we could do was that if we didn't get it right by the end of the season, then we probably can go prep. But the only problem with going prep was that our family had no money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it was like, and then we didn't know nobody else that went prep. So it was like, well, how they went, I don't know. Well, we just better bust somebody's ass. That's what we better do. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I'm saying? It worked out right. Honestly, even when I first because Bernard Wheeler transferred with me. Right. That's my road dog.
Right.
When we was at that stage, anybody that hit us at that particular stage from my senior year throughout that following summer, they was dead meat. And they understood that they was dead meat when they saw us on the court. dead meat.
Going
in the
at
summertime
everybody.
when we caught you in AAU, Zinder Hamilton and all that kind of stuff, like dead meat. And they knew that, you know, and then I was grateful that we was able to ride that school year out. We was able to do well. After our second game, we wasn't playing that well. Actually, our second game of the year, Ed Cota and them bust our ass at FIT.
I was just about to ask you, what was the adjustment like? I know you said Vars B had Rice. Now you over in the public league. Ain't no Vars B over there. You on the main stage, but it's a slightly different game because it's public game versus the Catholic game.
It was
the
way
coaching
different.
is different. So what was that adjustment
It
like?
was way different. The whole adjustment was different because in Rice it was an all-boys school. So now I go to King where it's 4,000 students, and it was crazy. I'm
Right.
talking about it was every day. I never wanted to miss a day of school. It was so amazing to be in King, and then it was love. My thing is, they was trying to fill me out. And when I first came there, I had gotten to the gym. My son was there. That's my man. My son crossover was super nasty. He just ain't wanna, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But his crossover was super nasty. But he was there too. And we just, after our second game, Ed Cota and them bust our ass in FRT. But the thing is, you know, we was smoking all that kind of stuff before school or whatever. So we had a team meeting that next day, and we said, listen, we laid down the rules. Every day after school, we going running. Before practice, you know what I'm saying? We cut out a lot of the BS we was doing, made sure everybody was being attentive, and that's when we flipped the switch. I believe out of the first two games, we lost one of those two games, and at the end of the season, we only wound up with 2, maybe 3 losses top, so you know where we went with it after that.
Definitely must have turned
Yep.
the leaf. So now y'all have a hell of a season. Y'all do y'all thing. Y'all obviously make it to the city chip. But before that city chip game, did anybody give y'all a run for y'all money during your playoff run where you thought to yourself, oh, this thing might end a little early, or something like that? Who gave y'all a run for y'all money?
That's good because at that our playoff run was crazy, as everybody was gunning for us. But at the same time, at that point, everybody knew that we was the real deal at that point. And nobody ain't really want to see us at that point, really, no matter what they said behind their back. But Manhattan Center had a mean team. Richie Parker, Cam was there. You know, Richmond had a mean team. The problem with Richmond is that Julia Richmond, was that none of their players couldn't stay eligible. But they had Ali Moe, they had Alfred Fitzgerald, they had Kuda was there, they had Gil Egan was there. They had all kind of people. So at that point, it was a lot of schools that was loaded or whatever, but it was just a matter of who could stay eligible or not.
Right.
And at that point, when we committed ourselves to staying eligible and staying the course and making sure we made a good run, we kept everybody in check, or whatever, and everybody was a pleasure, you know, for the rest of the year. And that's the reason why we had won the city championship, because we was willing to make that adjustment to get out of our comfort zone. Oh, and also I can also credit Dave Williams. Coach Dave Williams. Dave Williams too. Him and Dave Johnson was the head coach, but Dave Williams was like the associate head coach. Right. You know.
What squad would you say gave y'all the best before making it to the chip game? What squad would you say gave y'all best game?
In the playoffs, when we had to play against Tilden.
That's what Cota was at, right?
Yeah, Ed Cota. We played against Tilden. We played against them at LIU.
So y'all got them back.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. and he my man too. But the one thing that he would even say too, he was like, "Yo, I'm not gonna front." He like, when we first came out, because they came out with the hoodies and they was doing all their stretches, everything was beat King, and then they'd do their stretches and everything was beat King. So in that day before the game, I had bruised my tailbone. I had went up for a dunk in practice and somebody low bridged me, so I bruised my tailbone. So even the night before, I couldn't even walk. So I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. And also we knew that Tilden game, they wanted Ed Cota to play against Steph Marbury in the city championship. That's what they wanted. So they was crazy. We was even at LIU, and it was a packed house with Brooklyn people all over the place, all over the place. You know, I got the footage and all that kind of stuff. Actually, the footage is on YouTube. If you want to check it out, I'll put it up. It's on YouTube. But Ed Cota would even say, "Yo, B, He like, yo, y'all was so hyped up and all that before the game. When the game first started, he said, yo, I swear to God, I thought y'all took a bump. Yeah, that's something that he would literally say. He like, yo, I swear to God, I thought y'all took a bump. Like we were so ready for that moment. We were so ready for that moment that I mean, that game was a dog, and we knew that if we beat them, we may not be able to leave. But we had to do what we needed to do.
What you got to do.
You know, and we had some of our silly dudes show up. You know, it's always like that. We had some of our silly dudes show up just to make sure we just in case we need to balance things out. You know what I mean? Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, so y'all go on, make it to the city chip game. Going into that game, what was the game plan? Obviously, playing against the teenage phenom of your era, other than Felipe Lopez. You got Stephon Marbury. Everybody thinking they're the favorites. And y'all go in there and y'all upset them. And you hold Steph to, I believe, 5 for 24 shooting, I read somewhere. So what was the game plan going into that?
Well, I even touch on the city championship game, but just to take a step back real quick, you know that even when we went to play against Tilden, right? Even when we played them to go to the city championship, we were so dialed in on our own stuff and so focused on our own stuff. We knew that Tilden was a team that beat us, that made us turn our season around. But I really didn't even know who Eddie Cota was like that. It wasn't even like, you know how people be like, oh, there's such and such from over here and such is nice or whatever. Like, we just knew that we needed to get Tilden back. Right. It wasn't even about Ed Cota was super nice and this, that, and the third. We didn't even worry about what other people was doing. So that's how we wasn't even dialed into the fact that he was even an All-American. We knew that he was nice and all that, but we was like, all right, well, we showing up with our briefcase too. Right. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, but you know, but with the city championship, that whole thing, that whole week, preparing for the city championship, Steph sending all kind of messages back to the school because a lot of the girls and stuff like that went to the school, a lot of the girls was from Brooklyn. Right. So they would come back and they would say, yo, he said this, that, and the third or whatever. But we were so dialed in that we was almost like we was just like in a whole different zone. Nothing was bothering us. We was just locked in on our goal or whatever that we didn't even let any of that stuff bother with us. Made sure that we was dedicated to that week of practice, made sure that we showed up focused, made sure that that nobody got in trouble, made sure that everybody turned in their work and wasn't ineligible, and so that we can approach that game, you know, full strength. But it was also something before that game where the game almost didn't happen. I don't even know if people even know about that.
You're not talking about the storming of the court for the previous game.
That was crazy.
Go into that if you want to.
That was crazy.
I heard about that.
After everything that we worked for, we got to the point to where me and my man Nard literally, like we was like salivating to get on the court. We watching the games before us. We were so locked in that we literally sold over 100 tickets for that game, right? But when we was preparing for the game, and while we was, and even after the game, we didn't celebrate at all with nobody. We didn't sit with nobody. We barely sat with our own teammates. Me and my man Nard, we knew what our agenda was. We knew that everything, this was riding on us being the catalyst of getting our guys going. And we was prepared for that moment. But we was watching, and after George Washington, Robeson, who was it? Paul Robeson, Todd Miles hit the game winner. Right. He came down to George Washington, whatever, with the hands up to George Washington. As soon as he came down there with the hands up, one of them crazy dudes just clocked him. Pop! Clocked him right off his feet. Crazy. You see Brooklyn, George Washington, they just going crazy. I'm talking about we just looking at the game. I mean, we looking at the court and we like, it is absolutely no way that we're playing this game. I'm talking about it was chairs flying across. We talking about at the Garden, man. Right? I'm talking about minutes before we about to play. We even waited just to see who won the game or whatever. We didn't even go. Everybody else was probably getting dressed. That's probably how we was even the last two there, because we wanted to see how it played out. Because when we won, we wanted to see what we was gonna expect.
Right. Wow. So, all right, y'all locked in the week going into the game. What's the game plan though from the coaching staff? What's y'all game plan? How do y'all plan on shutting down Steph? How do y'all plan on throwing Lincoln out of whack?
Let me tell you something. Our defense, it was like 94 feet of hell. Our defense, we had Joaquin on the ball. We had Bernard on the ball. I'm talking about like straight dogs on the ball. It's like these, if you were like, as a point guard, I don't care who you are, what kind of wiggle you got, or whatever. These are not the two guys that you want to see at the same time on the same court. And then me, I was in the passing lanes. That's what I told you, even when I played football, I was a safety.
Right.
So that was kind of my thing. So I was able to read the eyes. As soon as he turned them, I knew where the next pass was going to. On it, bop, on it, we gone. It's like, it was such a pleasure playing with those dudes because it's like, you know how like, it's like if you show up to war with somebody, I know what I'm getting from them.
Right.
Every day. It wasn't even like it was no weak links on the team. Even our weak links on the team could get in and get busy. My man Elvis, you probably know my man Elvis Blunt. Elvis Blunt was like, he wasn't a starter. He was like a sixth man, maybe even seventh man. And he could come in one day and he can go absolute crazy and hit 3 threes in a row, 4 threes in a row. Or it could be a day where he don't even play that much. But it was such that everybody was so focused and dialed in on the goal that none of that kind of ego and none of that kind of stuff, none of that stuff came into play.
Got you. So now once y'all complete the task now, y'all the number one team in the city. How did you feel about that? What kind of joy did you feel? What kind of pride did you feel?
Shit ain't mean nothing to me, Gooch. I ain't gonna even front.
For real?
That shit ain't mean nothing because at that point it was like, oh damn, now we got a chance to get back to Rice. So even the city championship, that was like the short term goal to making our point. You know what I'm saying? And then we knew at that point we was already behind the 8 ball of trying to get to college. So it was even bigger than feeling like you like big and bad in the city. It was like, no, we got to get to school and all that kind of stuff. So we was a whole different kind of determined. And we knew that even after we won the city championship, we still ain't have schools on us.
Right.
And we just dismantled the team who was everybody's darling.
Yeah.
You know, even if you look at when the game came on TV, because our stuff wasn't live, but when the playback came on TV, the whole preview was about Steph, as if they didn't know that he lost.
That's true.
And it's like it's all love because this dude was one of the most phenomenal basketball players since he was able to walk. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't here to throw him under the bus, but for we only had to be better than him for one day, and that one day we was better than him.
Right.
That one day you go, that's on YouTube too.
Yeah,
If anybody want to check it out. But Jamar Hunter showed up with his briefcase and I went crazy. And I look back at that game and all that kind of stuff, and it could have been a little bit worse, and not even trying to go crazy, remaining humble and all that kind of stuff. But Dave and Johns, if y'all look at that game, Dave and Johns kept me out pretty much the whole third quarter. To this day, I never could understand what that was about.
I want to talk about Coach Dave for a little bit because he's still in the game, still leaving an impact on young men. You played for him nearly 30 years ago. What were some of the things? Nearly 30 years ago, this guy is in his 20s, probably early 20s. What were some of the things that he'd instill in you guys, him being not much older than y'all, and why would you even listen at that time? You see currently teenagers won't listen to someone. Oh, you barely removed from high school. I ain't listening to you. What you know? So what made y'all listen to him, and what was some of the game he had?
The thing is, even some of these teenagers and even people who out here really out here in these streets, they listen to people that they respect. That's my thing. I ain't grow up in the street and all that kind of stuff, or grow up having to do a certain thing. But even to this day and age, I can pull a dude who on the edge that pretty much nobody could talk to because they listen to people that they respect and that they see move a certain way. Even with Dave, I knew that even at that point, Dave was in the street, but Dave had such a love for what he was doing when he was coaching us and all that kind of stuff. He made you pay attention. When he talked to you and all that kind of stuff about what was going on, about what to expect, he painted the picture where he prepared you for the moment. So when the moment came, it was like, okay, this is what he was talking about. Or this is what we practiced up to this point or whatever. So that's how we was able to get better because we were able to swallow our egos and just listen. And like I said, that he was like the associate head coach. I don't even know what his position was. I don't even know if one day he just showed up because he was just cool with Johns and he was just like, I'm rocking or whatever.
Right.
But it was just like what it was. And out of respect, we made sure that we listened to what he said because he always kept it real with us or whatever. And every time that we listened to him and we just did it, it worked. Even like on defense, like defense was his catalyst.
Yeah, that's definitely his thing.
That was his thing. And when we approached it the right way, and you see how he is on the sidelines and all that kind of stuff. And we was dogs just like that on the court. I can even when I'm telling you the story and all that kind of stuff, it almost bring me back to the moment.
Yeah.
And it just make me that intense or whatever because it used to be like 30 seconds into the game and we like riled up. Like it's like we like in the thick of things. Or it's like we used to be on the layup line and stuff like that getting busy. And then at a certain point I would have to sit down because I was like too into the game, and I was starting to feel like almost like you about to hyperventilate, like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that was like some of the kind of stuff that he kind of like instilled in us. He like made us like train dogs after me playing for Tony Rosa and stuff like that, and knowing what to expect and coming up in a great family, a great family that where we was raised to be men and stuff like that, you know. So it was kind of like what I needed at that point, especially coming from Rice, because we already felt like the stepchildren. Mm-hmm. So it was like, oh yeah, that's how people feeling about us, and they had a good slot for us over there. All we had to do was come in there and work for us. Nobody ever spoke to us and said, yo, if y'all come here, this is what y'all get.
Right.
But I knew what I was coming for, and I knew that every gym period, I was cutting that class, and I was coming to gym, and I was coming to show people what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And then after after homecoming, when we went crazy on Brandeis after homecoming, then they like, and now I was one of them, and then I was able to
over there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Got you. How we got treated back at school? I know you say, yo, it wasn't nothing, whatever have you, but you said what you said about the girls bringing out messages back from Brooklyn. So now them same girls that brought the messages, now how y'all treated the following week going back to school?
I mean, for me, you know, I ain't here to, you know, toot my own horn, but that was never my problem. You know what I'm saying? Like as far as girls and all that kind of stuff, it was like, if anything, that just kind of made things a little bit worse. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's like now you have more eyes or whatever. But I was always fly. I always had myself together. I always kept myself humble. I always kept myself together. You know what I'm saying? I never got into no BS and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of like expected. And then even once we won and all that kind of stuff, it wasn't really no different. We just carried on as if, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We did what we expected to do. You know what I mean? We accomplished what we planned to accomplish. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like we going around like we the big dudes in the city.
Gotcha.
We just, like I told you, like it wasn't really even.
Wasn't nothing.
When we was playing in the garden or whatever, we was so focused, and after the game was over, I was a little bit pissed with myself. We sitting in the locker room and stuff like that. The cleanup crew coming in and stuff like that, and they like, come on, y'all gotta get ready to go. We was already getting ready for the state championship and getting ready for the possibility that we can go up there and play against Rice. Mm-hmm. And then we sitting back, and I'm just thinking like, yo, the whole time we was playing the game, I was so focused that I never even took the time to just look around at the crowd. I never did that. I never got, like, even when they called me for the MVP, if you look at the picture when I'm holding my MVP with the principal, I wasn't smiling, nothing. I was just so locked in that wasn't our end goal. So if I felt like if we would have celebrated that moment or whatever, we wouldn't approach the states the correct way, because we actually thought that even though Rice was the #1 team in the country, we still thought that we was going up there to beat them.
Got them. Yeah. So what ended up happening in the States once you guys got up there?
I mean, when we got up in the States, it was Rice, they was accustomed to that. They was accustomed to signing autographs and a hoopla and the media day and just people knowing your name and all that kind of stuff and knowing who you were. So when we got up there, we kind of got a little bit big-headed or whatever, because when the kids from the middle schools or whatever is screaming our name and wanting our autograph and all that, we start thinking like, oh damn, like we start thinking like we did a little something.
Right.
So even the night before the game, we didn't rest. We didn't, none of that kind of stuff. We fun timing, we hanging out, we playing games and all that kind of stuff. So when we actually played that game, we wasn't prepared to play that game. So if I could take one thing back, it would be my preparation. We prepared correctly all the way to that moment, but we didn't really finish the task. You know what I mean? Once we got up there, because it was like a week in between us winning the championship and us getting up there. So some people got a little lax. We already won. You know what I'm saying? You're not showing up on time and all that kind of stuff. And we at this point, we expected to go up there and just expected to have a little bit different result. But they beat us. They beat us by like 12. They ain't thrashed us or nothing like that. But you know what I mean? They beat us handily.
Got you. Now, obviously during that time, Rice had a phenom in their own right that you mentioned playing with as well during AAU, Felipe Lopez. What did you, at the moment, obviously everyone looks back on it and thinks he was a boy wonder. At the moment, did you realize like, oh, this dude is a cut above everybody else? Or
that dude was incredible. That dude was incredible. That dude was completely different. You know what I mean? Like even because when I was at the Gauchos, his brother Anthony came and brought him.
Right.
And he didn't speak English and all that kind of stuff. So we playing it. Then they bring in this tall dude. I was there the day that he came. They brought in this tall dude or whatever, and we see this dude playing. This dude was incredible. Incredible. At like 13 and all that kind of stuff. Like he was able to do everything that the best dudes thought that they can do. And he was like 4 inches taller than everybody. He couldn't even. It was a tournament called Animal League back in the days, right? Well, Animal League was like the developmental league for the Gauchos. Kind of like how Tony Rosa and the Mustangs, they have Little East.
Right.
But Animal League was where you was the animal of, you was a particular animal and that was your team. You might have been the Bears. You might have been the whatever. He was so good, and they used to lower the court. But he was so good and so dominant, he couldn't even play Animal League. That's real. He couldn't play Animal League, but he was a whole different kind of animal. And even when we was in Rice and stuff like that, and he really started cutting up once we got in Rice, you just knew what it was and stuff like that. Like, he was hardly around that school. They'll pick him up and they'll be taking him to lunch. He was pretty much able to do whatever he could do, whatever he wanted to do. But at that point, you looked at that guy, and it was like, this guy is a pro. Whatever the pro looks like, it probably looks like this. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he was a cut up. He used to cut up with us all the time. You know what I'm saying? Just regular stuff, just like we did. But when he got on that court, it was just something totally different. You know? Like, even back in the days, even not for nothing, we used to be like, there's no way he our age.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people.
Everything I love.
I hear a lot of people say that.
And also, when he had first came, he was like, oh, my brother Anthony said, such and such. So even thinking back on that, I'm like, yo, every time I see Leap, we ain't never speak about it, but I'm like, yo, Leap, you might have been like a little 3 years older than everybody. Leap, you had to be, you know. But it's all love. He's my man, though. I see him on occasion now, and it's always love. Yeah.
So now, high school season is done. What's your post high school plans now? I know you said earlier something about your bro and your homies putting together highlight tapes and stuff. Wheelchair Classic, that's happening after the season. So what's going on now? You got March, April, May, June. What's going on between March to June of your senior year? You trying to get to school? You trying to get into college? What are your plans? How you approaching that?
After we won the city championship, when we went on the road, went on the road with Doc Naselli. Doc from Madison Square Boys Club. Okay. Yeah, and Doc was a Italian. It was a different kind of dude. If you played for Doc, you know that Doc was a real deal kind of guy or whatever. But when we hit the road, me and my man Nard, most of the time we would show up and we go on the road with them. We have no idea who on our team that trip. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like one trip it'll be what's my man Roach from my man John from Brooklyn. My man Ty Mack from Brooklyn. Another guy, Greg Harden from McClancy. It was like all these dudes. We'd go on the road and we would just tear people up. Zenda Hamilton, you know, that Long Island Lightning team, you know, Dwayne Woodard, all of them, you know what I mean? Like these dudes, even Shimu Evans and all them kind of stuff. These dudes was always name brand guys or whatever. Always name brand guys. But when we showed up to those AAU tournaments and all that kind of shit, we was bringing all the grit. We was bringing our briefcase and all that, and people did not want to see us when they was on the road. The people who were there and who were playing against that and who were in that particular time frame, Ed Code and them, after we won a championship, that's when we had got cool with Ed Code and them. And even if, another funny thing is that even after we got cool with them on the road and stuff like that, everybody would always come to each other's room and stuff like that. We would always go to the Brooklyn dudes' room because we knew that they was gambling and stuff like that. And so me and my man, we would go over there, we would hustle, we would take some of their money and stuff like that. And then we would bounce and come back to our room and just prepare for the game and all that kind of stuff. But that was like, we used to try to add insult to injury and stuff like that. You know, not for nothing and not like that. But we knew that that's where it was happening. It was like, and if that's where it's going down, we're going to dominate that too. Yeah. And then we'll go and we'll do that, and then we'll see you next day on the court. And it was real. We didn't win every tournament, obviously, and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes our teams was just shorthanded versus what they had with BABC and all that kind of stuff. But when we showed up, that summer we went crazy, and we got some notice and all that kind of stuff, and we didn't get some notice. But Spike Lee, Gil Reynolds, we wound up bumping it, and somebody wound up hooking us up with Gil Reynolds. We went and worked out for Gil Reynolds in Queens one day, and Gil Reynolds said that he wanted us to go to his prep school, which was Laurinberg Prep. So me and my man Nard went to the prep school. We never even inquired about who was going to pay the tuition or whatever. We just like, all right, cool, we going, or whatever. We went to the prep school, and come to find out, Spike Lee paid our tuition.
Wow, man. Shout out Spike.
We never even met him. But the funny thing is, like, I even think back on that whole situation because we never really thought into it that deep. But Spike is a Knicks guy, right? So he probably was at that game when we beat Steph and them in the city championship. And so because we did the right thing, and the story probably crossed his plate again, he probably I remember these guys, and that's probably why he paid it forward. Because we ain't never meet him.
That's real, man. That's real gangster stuff right there, man. So now you decide to go down to Laurinberg Prep. Laurinberg Prep has a storied history. Before getting into the plan, Laurinberg got a population of 15,000 people today. So I don't even know what it was like in the early 90s, mid 90s. What was it like for a big city kid going down to Laurinberg? Like I said, 15,000 people today. So
I'll just let you finish. I'm already laughing because I knew what it was. Stay on the campus. Stay on the campus, period. Actually, I got even a deep story, right? It was even deeper, right? I'm sitting in class one day. We had our grades. We ain't need nothing in it. I'm sitting in class one day, and all of a sudden, we in math class. We took three math classes or whatever, just so we could have something to challenge us or whatever. And even in those classes, we still was getting hundreds and stuff like that. So me and my man Nard, we out in Laurinberg together. And then the headmaster came to my classroom one day, and he tell the teacher, yo, I need to speak to Jamar. So I'm like, speak to me? Like, what do you speak to me for? So I went out, cops and all that stuff out there. They talk about after I finish the school day, they gonna have to, I start sweating. They bring me right back to that moment. After the school day, we gonna come back and we gotta take you to jail because you violated your probation or violated some shit. They said I did something, and I'm sitting there like, what? I just got here 2 weeks ago. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they didn't even want to talk. They like, sir, we're not here to cause a disruption in the school. They pretty much telling me listen, whatever you say ain't valid. We said we coming to pick you up at 3 o'clock when the school bell ring. So you could get ahead and go back to class or whatever, but we coming to pick you back up. So I'm sitting there with Mr. McDuffie, who was the headmaster, and I'm like, what are these dudes talking about? And he like, don't worry about it, we'll figure it out. And I'm like, don't worry about it, we'll figure it out. So I went back to class, and I'm speaking to my man Nard, and I'm like, yo, these dudes said that they coming to pick me up to take me to jail after school. And he like, for what? He like, fuck you done did. He just got here. I'm looking at this thing like, man, fuck you, man. But so what happened was that they mistake me for somebody else. It was a Jamar, somebody else who had did something the year before. So when they came back at 3 o'clock, meaning business or whatever, that was the one thing that they was able to straighten out, and that was the one saving grace. And then the headmaster vouched for me and said, no, this boy wasn't even here last year. But the headmaster never even asked the story. So You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Yeah, but Laurinberg was pretty nuts experience.
What would you say was some of the biggest adjustments? Was there racism, bunch of Confederate flags everywhere?
No racism, none of that kind of stuff. Everybody's black. The one thing that you had to make an adjustment to was that the majority of the kids that was there, they was there as an alternative to going to jail. I don't understand how that come.
Yeah.
That story was never put out there. It's like this big basketball school and all that. Like 70% of the people, who shared a suite with us, and we used to always take care of them. Like, yo, because we had to get dressed for Laurinberg. We had to get dressed on Thursdays or Fridays, one of those days. We had to put on our gray slacks, our white shirt, and our tie with our shoes. And that, I don't know why. I don't even know what kind of structure that was about or what they was trying to get across with that. But we had to do that on Thursdays or whatever. Joe Buttons, he shared the suite with us, and we used to have to tell him, yo, Buttons, yo, we used to call him Buttons, yo, get off of your shoes, because he used to like have the feet together, be on the side of his shoes, sloppy, shirt out his pants, so we'd be like, yo, Buttons, you got to get yourself together. He was a little younger than us and all that. He'd be like, yo, I don't care. But he was mouse at that time, I don't care. And then here you go, he grow up and he become fucking Joe Buttons, the rapper.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So, who were some of you had any other notable teammates at Laurinberg with you during your time?
Laurinberg, we did have a dude named Rob Johnson. He wound up going to Indiana. He was the starting point guard at Indiana. But this dude, Rob, thought he was Michael Jordan. I hope he can see that. I hope his cousin Theron or his other cousin Jerry, who was there too with us. This dude walked like Michael Jordan. This dude chewed his gum like Michael Jordan. The little mailman hat or whatever. Yeah. He wore those. His bill was kind of like Michael Jordan, and he took off and did everything like Michael Jordan. And he was dumb nice. But even that year, when we was in Laurinberg, like Gil Reynolds was our coach, and he was always unorthodox. And even the schedule that he put together that we played that year, we played against the Lifers 3 times.
Life was like who?
Bro, the point guard had 999 years.
Where was he? What prison was he taking
Bamberg
y'all
Correctional
to?
Facility. Bamberg Correctional
And y'all
Facility.
getting it with them on the yard?
We used to drive
on a
there.
prison yard?
No, not on the yard, but they had a gym. But so I'm even telling you about even the dude Rob. Even the 3rd time that we played them, we beat them the first 2 times, but they wasn't. It was like we used to be in the gym, but they was sitting right behind us. Yeah. It's like if it was 3 guards in there or whatever, we in there with lifers and all. But if it's 3 guards in it, it was 150 inmates.
There's nothing they could do if
nothing.
you feel like taking over.
Nothing. These dudes in there, you got some of these dudes in here with a basketball jacket from 20 years ago when they used to play for Gil and all this kind of stuff. I'm talking about you in the gym. This is where we like, yo, why everybody got shades on? You know what I'm saying? It's like the 3rd time that we played them, a week before we went up there, these dudes killed the ref.
Oh.
Had the ref running through the joint with his guts in his hand and all that kind of stuff. And then we get to the game to play them for the 3rd time that we getting ready to beat them again or whatever. And my man Rob is getting ready to take off on one of the dudes, right, on a break. And the dude fouled him crazy hard. And then he get in the dude's face and tell the dude, oh yeah, all right, so watch after the game. He said, watch after the game. Yo, me and my man Nard, we was always in tune with each other. We looked at each other. We said, yo, let me get a timeout, man. We got a timeout. Yo, we got his ass so crazy. Watch after the game. Like, do you understand where we are? But these are the kind of people that we played against stuff. We played against North Carolina Varsity B team right in March, right before they played Duke in March Madness. Mm-hmm. It was crazy. We got there at halftime because me and Nard, we was playing at an all-star tournament in like Virginia or something like that. And then we had to drive up from there, and we still got there at half, and we still went off and still did our thing. But they had one dude on their team that we wasn't sure if this dude was Vince Carter or something. Like, really. Because it's like the dude played the whole game with ankle weights. Yo. And was dunking his joint crazy and all that kind of stuff. But it's like at that point, we had no idea who some of these people was because we wasn't those dudes who chased the name brand guy.
Right.
But after the fact, like 2 years later, we was thinking like, yo, and then Vince wound up going to North Carolina. We like, yo, that probably was Vince. You know what I'm saying? But then right after we played, it was Jeff McGinnis and it was Rasheed Wallace and Jerry Stackhouse and all them. They was playing against Duke. They were coming on the court, we coming off the court. And we, you know, that was crazy.
Yeah.
And from there we had got some exposure. We used to go to some of the North Carolina games. They used to invite me and my man Nard and Georgia Tech. You know, we had got cool with Georgia Tech and stuff like that. And when they came in town, they would always make sure that we was good.
Got you. So now, when does your recruitment start picking up? I'm pretty sure it started picking up somewhere around Laurinberg during your stay there, but like when does it really start heating up? Are you a late signee or early signee?
I was a late signee, but it really started picking up when we started playing against the military schools.
Okay.
That was the one thing that I thought was great.
Hargrave.
We played against Hargrave and Fork Union. When we played in the Hargrave and Fork Union tournament, you know, you had to show out.
Right, everybody's there.
Oh boy, you had to show out because they was really known for football. Mm-hmm. But they represented for basketball too, and the coaches, the head coaches and stuff was coming. But it's like we went there and we got into our stuff and we did what we had to do, scrape those dudes up, and for some reason we didn't really get the recognition that we deserved. But I wound up having St. Peters. They came, and St. Peters was on me super heavy. I had Hampton. They was on me super heavy. I had McNeese State, where Joe Dumas went. They was on me super heavy. So I had a couple different schools, but it wasn't kind of like the school that I was like, that kind of make me feel like all my hard work, you know what I'm saying, came through. You know, so, and my man Nard, he didn't really have nothing. So we was like, but we stayed true to what we was down there for. We just stayed there and got busy. But the whole experience with Gil Reynolds, do you know Gil Reynolds?
I don't know him, but I always heard the
well,
name.
Gil Reynolds had passed away, but if you know of Gil Reynolds, anybody who played for Gil Reynolds could tell you bare minimum 1,000 stories.
Yeah, he's a legend.
I got all kind of stories of Gil Reynolds with all kind of acts and all that kind of stuff where he was off the hook and stuff where he taught us the right way and all that kind of stuff. But that whole Laurinberg experience was such a big experience. By the time I came home, it was almost like we went through like 4 years of college.
I was just going to get to that with you too. So now you decide to go to St. Peter's during your prep year. If it weren't for St. Peter's, if it wasn't St. Peter's, where do you think you would have went? Like, what was your second choice? Honestly,
I didn't get St. Peter's. I didn't decide I was going to St. Peter's until like after the like at tail end of the summer. Like me and real stuff. Me and my brother was gonna be in the backcourt at Hunter College.
For real?
For real. And it was Hunter, because my brother was already at Hunter, and he played there for a year, and he was getting busy there for a year. It was just that when my cousin had passed away in 1996, my cousin Mikey, when he had passed away in 1996, my brother didn't really care about school and all that kind of stuff no more. So at the tail end of the summer, I was so frustrated by the way that everything had played out. Some days they would come into the room and all that, and I would never cut my lights on and all that kind of stuff. Like, I was so in a funk about how everything had played out, even after I won the city championship and got MVP.
Right.
After I proved to Rice that I could do what I said I was going to do in Metro on the States. After we ran through everybody that summer, and we still had hardly anything to look towards, and then even felt double bad for my man Nard, because I even had a couple schools and he didn't have nothing. And I'm like, yo, you know what? I almost didn't want to play ball no more and all that, and I literally almost went to Hunter College. When I went on the first visit with St. Peter's and all that kind of stuff, I went out there just so I could just say I went on a visit, just because my brother asked me if I could just go on a visit. But I went on a visit. They tried to get me to go to the strip club and all that kind of stuff. I didn't want to do nothing. I went up there. I got McDonald's. I sat by the window. I told somebody, go get me some that I could blow on or whatever, and I sat by the window and I spent my whole visit right there, and that was it. By the time I left, they was like, I said, yeah, I'll call y'all. I knew that I wasn't calling them. I didn't care about none of that kind of stuff. And then a week later, my brother was just like, yo, please, just sign, yo. Just sign with them, yo. And I wound up signing, and I'm grateful that I did.
Absolutely.
You know?
Wow. So it wasn't even really a thought of like, yo, this is a second option, because you wasn't even really messing with your first option.
I just, at that point, man, I was so disgusted with some of the options that I had at that point, knowing that I saw some of my peers who we just ran through was doing this over here. And not that we here to be checking nobody's pocket and all that kind of stuff, but it's like, how come ain't nobody help? And then when we went to Laurinberg was such a crazy experience. Like, even with Laurinberg, we went through this every day. Imagine this every day. You sleep, right? Before you even go to sleep, Gil Reynolds at our door, because he took a liking. He used to always say, oh, I took a liking to you boys. So he used to pull up to me and our door. We was roommates. He would stay at our door until 3 o'clock in the morning. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning, you know how he woke us up?
Nah. A bullhorn or something?
Bullhorn. He had a hammer, right? And he, on everybody's door with the hammer. Boom, 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 boom. Wake your asses up. Get in the hall. Next person. Boom, 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 boom. Wake your ass up. Get in the hall with a hammer. Right? And then you,
like a nut,
and then he tell you, listen. Then he'll lecture you for a whole hour. You tired, listening. Like, I'm like, yo, dog, you just left here 3 hours ago, and now you back. I'm tired. Then he look at somebody got the stupid smirk or whatever, and he'll tell everybody, go get dressed. Right? We get dressed. Right? As we had to go and get dressed, he would make us jog 5 miles to the McDonald's. Everybody had to pick a straw, right? Jog 5 miles to McDonald's, pick a straw, bring that straw back. You couldn't bring 2 straws. Let them find you a more than 1 straw. Or act like you didn't run all the way to McDonald's and have somebody else bring back a straw. And he used to have a police officer or whatever parked on the side of the road that used to always catch people. And by the time we used to get back to the campus, he'll look right at that person. We'll have to stop right in front of him. And he'd be like, you got something to tell me, son? He used to say that, just like that. And he used to be like this. Probably like, old dude, you got something to tell me, son? And he'd get all the way in your face. And you'd be like, what? You think you're being slick? And he'd be like, you think I don't have eyes on you? And then you get caught. And then you know what? And then now all of us got to do something stupid. He'll say, now I'm going to have all y'all do. He used to say that, do something stupid. Take us into the gym, and we used to run for like 2 hours.
Oh, man. Coach Reynolds, man. Oh, man.
Yeah.
So after going through all of that, you picking St.Peters, you go through all of that crazy stuff at Laurinberg. How would you say that your adjustment to college was easier?
Easier, way easier. Because I'll be honest, when I came back from Laurinberg that summer, like I was like a machine. I was like a machine. Even like even in the hood, because my thing is I wasn't like one of those basketball hoes, so I ain't need to play everywhere.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So the stuff that I played in the places that I played, when I came, I left my mark that summer, and it felt different to people. Even people would be able to see the difference, but I felt that when I went out with Gil, there was a certain amount of fundamentals that I just didn't have. And when I was playing my senior year and stuff like that at King, we was just dogs. We was just determined or whatever. But like, and I had to pull up, but my handle wasn't right. Like creating my own shot and all that kind of stuff. I really didn't do as much, but I had my man Nard and Waleed and all these dudes to set me up. I just had to run my lane, and they hit me, and I was finishing that.
Right.
Period.
Right.
You know what I mean? But when I went there, he worked on a lot of the nuances of our game, all kind of drills and all kind of life lessons that he taught us while we was out there. That next year, all that stuff started kicking in. By the time we started getting to college and stuff like that, I felt like I was like an adult by the time I got to college. And even as a freshman, I was like, even my college teammates can see this. As a freshman, I came in as like the leader.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Not like vocal, but as far as
your action.
As far as my actions, I was out there putting in super work. When we played in the game and all that, the first 5 games of the season, I was the leading scorer or whatever. It was just that at a certain time, the coaches and all that dialed me back.
Yeah.
Because the players that was playing in front of me, that was seniors and stuff like that, they were coming back from injury and all that kind of stuff. But you know what I'm saying? I was prepared.
That's what I want to get into with you. Like, when you say how your coaches dialed you back, I noticed you had started out your freshman year kind of with a kind of explosive. But when you look at your minutes per game, your freshman year, you played 12 minutes a game. How frustrating was that?
That was crazy frustrating. Because my thing is, I knew that even though I was probably only going to play like 15 minutes a game, even at the peak or whatever, I knew that when I played those 15 minutes, I had to make an impact. So even I started my first 5 games, I averaged like 15 points in 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. Even when we played against Kansas was #1 team in the country when we played against Kansas. Jock Vaughn, Paul Pierce, Rafe LaFrance, Scott Pollard, Gerard Haas. Mm-hmm. Like, the person who I was guarding in Kansas, right? My matchup was Paul Pierce. The freshman. Well, I got the 6'8" guy.
Yeah, the All-American.
Put me on Jock Vaughn. All of them was All-Americans.
Right, everybody.
Put me on Jock Vaughn but I was intent on making my mark or whatever, and that's what I did as a freshman. Whatever minutes I was able to get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in my sophomore year, it was my show.
Yeah, you definitely made a big jump. Basically tripled your playing time. You more than doubled your scoring output. Mm-hmm. What you think caused that? Just having the freedom, or do you think you improved that much? You was double as better. What do you think helped?
I mean, what I think helped was staying in the gym. I stayed in the gym. I showed up early, stayed late, all the time. You know what I mean? I was focused. Even the summertime. In the summertime, the only tournament I would play in the summertime was 55th. But I knew that I would play in 55th because that was a good payday or whatever. But
right.
You know what I mean? But for the most part, I just made sure that I just kept working hard, hone my craft. I got my shot up. You know what I mean? My trainers and stuff like that was on me was intent about working on stuff that I needed to work on, and I just got better. And I knew that once I got the opportunity where I could be more productive, I needed to be more productive, and that's what I did. I knew that I was in college. I was the first person out of my family that was in college, so I knew that while I was in college, I needed to be able to make this thing. I needed to be able to max that opportunity, and every opportunity I got to max that opportunity, I did so. On and off the court.
Respectable.
The one thing with even with Laurinberg, like with Laurinberg, there's so much stuff we can go on Laurinberg that we be here all day. So I won't even keep touching on that. But Gil Reynolds was an exceptional dude.
I heard.
And he was a father figure. Like the thing is like if Gil Reynolds took a liking to you, that was different. Even in the community world, right? I had did this one day because it was like a big group chat that I was on. You was on this group chat too. It was like the Q&A.
Oh yeah,
the Q&A basketball joint.
Yeah.
And it's like all of the dudes chiming in and saying, because everybody like to say, oh, I was this person, I was that person.
Era this and yeah.
Or just talk about themselves and what they did or whatever. But one day I posted up the letter that Gil Reynolds had wrote me, and it's like even if you played for him and all that kind of stuff, or didn't, you knew the significance of that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a person wouldn't even have this unless they was of a particular stature or whatever. Yeah. Gil won't say this. Like Gil used to, his mom used to call him. His mom was like 80 something, used to call him. And he used to be aggressive with his moms. Like, yo, Gil, your mom's on the phone. He get on the phone, what do you want? So he was like super duper like intense all the time. So if this dude got this kind of emotional on a piece of paper for you, you was a different kind of guy.
Yeah.
Lavelle Sanders, he used to always talk about Lavelle Sanders, and that was even how me and Lavelle got cool or whatever. And then what was even crazy is that when I went to, he used to always keep us up all night talking about Lavelle Sanders, right? And then that next year I went to
St. don't know who Lavelle Sanders is.
Lavelle Sanders went to Seton Hall. Right now he's the head coach at the University of Binghamton. Him and Shaheem Holloway, who's also the head coach at Seton Hall now,
right.
They were in the backcourt together or whatever.
Okay.
So that was who I played against. But it was like he used to always tell me about Lavelle, that when I met Lavelle, when we played against each other that next year, because we always played against Seton Hall, it was almost like I knew him. And it was almost like he knew me, because on the flip side, Gil would tell him the same thing that he's telling me. So it was kind of like we were related by Gil. It was kind of like we were Gil sons, kind of like.
What do you think made Gil take such a special liking to guys like yourself and Lavelle? Because some coaches, they take a special liking to their favorite player or the dude who got the most production.
Right.
And some coaches just click with a certain guy on their team. He might be the third most productive dude, but he's that dude to that coach. So what do you think made y'all Gil's dudes?
Well, when we were in Laurinberg, right, Gil was no nonsense when we was in Laurinberg, right? And I guess at a certain point, he had saw that everything that he was throwing at us, we was just absorbing it. Like, and at a certain point, he had just came in our room and he said that we're gonna be the captains. We the only people that had the keys to the washroom and all that kind of stuff. Like, everything ran through us. It was Gil, but everything ran through me and when we was in that dorm. But you had to earn that respect. If he put you on a crash mission or whatever, and you went and executed 100%, he loved it or whatever. If he called you in the game or whatever, and he asked you to take care of this in particular, whatever, you knew that it was your agenda to take care of that and nothing else. And he loved it. And he loved our intensity. He loved our approach, and I guess he loved the fact that he would throw anything that he could throw at us, and we just wouldn't cower. You know, like even when we would be in school and stuff, like in the school building or whatever, me and Nard knew that, dog, after school, we know our name is going to be on the board to have to do a special workout. After we had to do the morning run to McDonald's to get the straw and all that kind of stuff. So after school we came, who was on it? Either me or Nard every day to do a special workout. Most of the time we'd have to go to the gym. Our gym was twisted. Our Laurinberg gym was twisted. You know what I mean? We have to, it was the highest gym you could possibly think of. We used to have to lean a ladder on the what do you call it? On like the banister or whatever.
Or the basket?
No. On the rafters. We used to have to lean the ladder on that joint some days so that we can go and change the light bulb. And we didn't have the A-shaped ladder.
Straight joint.
We had this straight ladder where where two people at the bottom just had to hold it. And one of those people was Gil. And Gil used to, when we go up the ladder and you shaking like this, going up the ladder, and he'd be like, this guy's a pussy. You know what I mean? So it was stuff like that. He'll put us on a crash mission. And then at the end of the year, when we look back and tell him stuff, and at the end of the year, when we look back, right, and we like, nobody else had to do that except us.
Right.
But he would send us on certain missions, I guess, just to see, let me see what kind of limit I could push these guys to or whatever. But we used to have to do all different kind of crazy stuff with Gil, and he used to always tell us, I took a liking to you guys. And, you know, and we just did what we had to do. He was like his enforcers.
At the time, did you feel any sort of honor behind that?
Man,
or
it was,
do you look back on it with honor?
For honor. It was like extreme honor. Because it was like, if he put you in that position, he saw something in you. And we pretty much ran the dorm. It was like, out of respect, the other people that were there, Carlos Hines there with us, these dudes, Julia Richmond, you know, all of these dudes, we had some significant guys that was there with us, but they listened to everything that we said or whatever because we carried ourselves a certain way and because we demanded that kind of respect. But we were grateful that he was able to put us in that position because it was something that we needed at that time, because even at that time, we didn't really know our complete worth as leaders. So he kind of cultivated us as leaders in that moment. And that's one thing that I really was able to take from that and appreciate.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Yeah.
So now getting back into your collegiate career, your upperclassmen years, you were really one of the better players in the MAC conference, no debating. Top 20 in plenty statistical categories, field goal percentage, free throw percentage, points per game, assists per game, and even getting after it on the defensive side with your steals per game. What do you think got you to that level, being one of the better players in your conference, and kept you at that level as you're rounding out your collegiate career?
I mean, my thing is, when I showed up in college, I knew I wasn't there to BS. I wasn't there for the partying and all that kind of stuff. Like in my whole college, the 4 years I was in college, I probably went to one party. Like I wasn't there for none of that. Like when we went on the road and all that kind of stuff, I was getting the laptop from the athletic department or whatever, and I was going on the road with my laptop. I was maintaining my 3.4, 3.5 GPA and all that kind of stuff. when some of these other dudes was joking around, they thought it was cool to have a 1.8 and just barely be eligible, or a 2.0 and all that kind of stuff, or they thought it was. And I was grateful that I was always in the know where I didn't have to chase certain stuff. So some of these dudes don't come from having girls and all that kind of stuff, or having people checking you out and all that kind of stuff. So some people may have had to do different things to be able to stay in that mix, but I was able to just be me and just do my thing and just work hard and stuff like that. And it was just what it was. You know what I'm saying? People knew that. Like even one of my coaches, he used to always ask people, why can't you be more like Jamar and all that kind of stuff or whatever. And I used to have to tell him, like, yo, you got to chill with that. You know what I'm saying? Because you never know how people looking into that. Like working hard is working hard. And I'm here to show up and with my briefcase and do what I got to do. But maybe that's their version of working hard or whatever. But you got to take that up with them. But don't put me in the middle of that. And I think that towards the tail end of my college career, people look back at it, and it was kind of something that they didn't look at. I wouldn't say with jealousy, but it was almost like it was us against me, them against me, kind of like, you know what I'm saying? Because I carry myself this way, and I wasn't about no bullshit, no cutting up and all that kind of stuff. But even with the team and stuff that we had in college, we could have went crazy in college. We didn't know what we had in college and all that. And that's one experience I wish I could live over and all that kind of stuff, because I wish I would have done more about getting people on the same page with me. You know what I mean?
I was going to ask you that. Obviously, being in the conference that you were in, it's tough getting to the tournament. You got to win the league to get there. Obviously, anybody would wish that they made it to the dance. Was there any year during your career that you thought, man, this is the year that we should be able to take it?
Well, my freshman year, they had just won the conference.
Right.
The thing is, that summer when I was going to the school, the head coach was supposed to get a raise, and he had asked for a raise for winning or whatever, and asked him to renegotiate his contract. Instead of renegotiating his contract, they fired him.
Wow.
So I never even got a chance to play under Fiore.
So you didn't even play for the dude that recruited you?
The dude that I signed, well, the assistant coach stayed. The assistant coach, who pretty much was the point person or whatever, he stayed. Casey. Coach Casey, he was my guy. Coach Casey was one of the reasons why I stayed sharp and stuff like that when I was in college, because he was a super high energy guy. If you wanted to work out at any particular time, Coach Casey was your guy. He would work out now, he would work out later, he would work out whenever. You know what I mean? And he would be there to rebound and pass me, and I loved it. You know, when I was there, I wasn't there to, like I told you, I wasn't there to do nothing else. I was there to go to school. I was there to do practice. After practice was over, Martin was coming on at 7 o'clock. I was beelining to the dorm to go and watch Martin. And I didn't even have to worry about going to the cafeteria and all that, because my moms and all that kind of stuff always made sure I was good and all, I was taken care of. Yeah. And when I did need to go to the cafeteria, we had a card. So we would go to that cafeteria, swipe that card, and you would be right. So I just stayed out of the way when I was in school and just stayed productive. You know what I mean? Right.
Got you. So, so of like any of the years?
Excuse me. My senior year is when we had senior year is when we lost in the conference championship to go. We lost to Siena. Siena was good. You know what I'm saying? But if any year that we was going to win, it was going to be that year, because even before the conference tournament started, I was supposed to be done for the whole season. I tore my meniscus and I strained my wrist. I had to take cortisone shots in my wrist, and my meniscus, I used to have to do triple therapies so I can get back on the court. I used to have to do triple therapy. I used to have to do therapy in the morning, in the afternoon, and then do therapy at night. I used to have to do therapy at the Kessler Institute. Like my shoulder was messed up, my wrist was messed up, and my knee all on one plate. We was playing against Niagara, and it was nip and tuck game. Niagara was tough, and they went to throw the ball back to me or whatever, and I was going to take off the dunk, and one of the dudes on the other team low bridged me, and when he low bridged me, I came down like this, and I came down bang on the wrist. My feet was up here, came down, my leg boom, and that's how I tore my meniscus, and my shoulder was just whatever. So then I tried not to come out of the game. I stayed in the game. I tried to shoot. When I went to shoot, this shot went like in between like the free throw line and the basket. It was like horrible. And I told my coach, don't take me out. Don't take me out the game. So I played like the whole rest of the game like left-handed, like, you know what I'm saying? And then after the game, crazy. I always had crazy. Dude, my brother ran down on the dude. I remember that vividly. My brother ran down on the dude and all that because it was almost like he did that on purpose. When I got back to my dorm room and all that kind of stuff, we went to go check out some girls and all that kind of stuff in the building next door and all of that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm just sitting there. My knee was just swelling up like crazy. And I'm like, in like the next 5 minutes, I couldn't walk. I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't even open my eyes. It was so bad. And I called my moms. I told my moms, something happened. I need y'all to come out here. You need to take me to the hospital. They came, took me to the hospital, and I tore my meniscus. My wrist was twisted and all that, and I was supposed to be done for the season. So I asked them what I could do to be able to get back on pace so I can play. In the conference tournament, because I was like, the conference tournament was like a month away.
Right.
And I was a senior.
Right.
So I did triple my therapies and all that kind of stuff. And the first game before the conference tournament that I came back was against Iona. Played against Iona, did great. We beat them and all that kind of stuff. But then after the game, my knee was crazy. I come out looking like Patrick Ewing with the big ice pack on my knee and all that. It was bad, but I did what I had to do to get back on the court. And then that conference tournament, I wound up averaging 28 in the tournament. At least maybe 26 in the tournament. But I know the first game we played against Niagara, which was the home team, they had Alvin, I forget Alvin's name, but he was from Brooklyn. He was the leading scorer in the country.
All right.
Knocked them off. First game, they was the home team, knocked them off. I had like 4 in the first half because I was still laboring over my leg. I was scared to jump and all that kind of stuff. Second half, I went off for 24. Next game, it was kind of similar. I was sore when this game started because you only get a couple hours in between games or whatever. So I was sore. First half, I kind of played okay. Second half, I went off for like 26. Went crazy, and then that next game is when we got Siena. That whole 2 days before the game, I'm doing all kind of press and all that kind of stuff about my cousin. Like the story was deep if we would have won, so I was really gunning for it and all that kind of stuff. And I think that when we played in that championship game, I overcompensated because I wanted it that bad because I saw everything right there. Because it was like after we won the championship, you know how like after you see somebody win a championship and then like 5 minutes later you get all the world champion, it's like, and you be thinking like, yo, how they know?
Yeah.
It's like they just press the button and they just say that if it happens, it happens, and we gonna roll out this whole campaign and it's gonna get stupid for you. Or if it don't happen, sorry.
Yeah.
And it ain't happened. We lost and all that kind of stuff, and it ain't, you know what I'm saying?
Damn, man. So now,
but all goodbyes ain't gone because everything worked out the way it needed to work out, and I was grateful that my family was out there with me. I believe we was in Buffalo or whatever, but my family was gung-ho. They would always travel, always had like 10 people with us.
Yeah.
And even now, when I look back at the game and I look back at that tournament, my pops was there too. Like to get, like, you know, like if you knew to get my pops to Buffalo to the tournament and all that kind of stuff, that was almost as if people knew that he wouldn't be around long and that moment was needed. Because you could even look back at the game, and I got my pops cheering in Buffalo. I already told you my pops don't really show up into the championship game, and even ironically, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
He found a way to get himself to the championship game. You know what I mean?
That's real. That's real. So, all right, senior year, you close to making it. You fall just a little bit short. Now you wrapping up your collegiate career. You're about to graduate. What did you study?
Business management. I minored in economics.
Okay. So now, what's your plans going into post-collegiate career? Obviously, everybody wants to play for money, but what was your plans? What was your idea? What did you think your prospects were?
I mean, honestly, by the time my college run was over, like I played 55th and all that kind of stuff, but by the time my college run was over, we was really heavy on music. So I had a record label, and our record label was popping. We was doing well and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I focused on, and that made my transition from basketball easy. Because at a certain point, I was like, I did everything that I needed to do. I didn't want to keep on playing ball because I felt scorned at a certain point, so I needed to take a break. And then music just consumed us.
So you went straight from the collegiate playing ball route right into music route?
Music, yeah, because I was gonna go overseas. I had a couple different options where I could have went overseas, but at that point it was only 2 Americans to a team.
Right.
And some of the dudes that even not like Reg Freeman and like some of these dudes who was like the top of the top, they was having problems overseas and all that kind of stuff. It was like, so I'm not going halfway across the world, play for a couple months and they send me home talking about, Will, send your check never come. So I ain't dealing with that. I had a bunch of people around me. I always provided, like, they lifted me up over the course of the 4 years when I was in college and stuff like that. They was, even when I was in high school, if you look at all of the tapes and stuff like that, from when I have anything on TV and all that kind of, anything on YouTube and all that, I always have my family support. So at that point when I was done with college and stuff like that, it was my chance to support them. Because now I was in position where financially, I was in a better space to where I could do for them, or I could tell them like, yo, I don't think you should be in the street no more or whatever, you should do this or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And that stuck. And we was making music and it was crazy. Like my brother is the best rapper you probably never heard of. Like, period. Like, you could put up anybody. I don't care where you go or where you pull a person from. Like, Joe Hunter is probably the best rapper that you never heard of in your whole entire life. I got 96 songs from my catalog and all that kind of stuff from his solo project, the group project. Even if you want to challenge yourself, pull up Game Tight on YouTube. Game Tight, Hollywood Showstoppers on, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's like a roller coaster ride. By the time it finished, I guarantee you'll be stuck for 2 seconds after the video is over. I guarantee you, and that was all out of pocket. I paid for the whole video. We was right here. We had like all of the stuff that we always did. We always went 100 miles an hour with the joint. We decided to do the video on Game Tight because that was one of the hot songs that we had. And we decided, and somebody decided for me that in a week we should do the video. And then in a week, the video was gonna cost us like $25,000. But I was getting money at that time, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. But it was still $25,000. We talking about 25 years ago, 20 years ago.
Right. People ain't
we had the video for them. We had 5 different scenes. We had the train and all that kind of stuff with it. We had all of the professional dudes from the New York Film Academy and all that kind of stuff. We went and got it done. And when I say the testament to what we was doing at that time, pull that up on YouTube and you'll be able to see what we was doing at that time. Joe Hunter is the gladiator narrator, best rapper you probably never heard of.
More. So, what would you in the music game? What was your position?
I was CEO.
CEO of the label.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, when in that position, because everybody doesn't know what goes on in the music game. In that position of being a CEO of a label, what do you do? Do you acquire artists? Do you develop artists?
Our artist was our family. We had Hollywood Showstoppers was my brother and Artie Bills. Then we had my cousins, who was HRC. That was my cousin Abso. My cousin Abso right now own Captain Louis. Just opened up another Captain Louis. But these are some of the people that came up on the Abso. Then we had my other cousin. I live out in Virginia now. But we had all family that was part of our label. But it was just out of love. It was just like I had a studio up in the crib. And while I was at work or whatever, they had the keys. And you just go in the studio and just do what you do. But I didn't care nothing about like what it took to do the music and none of that kind of stuff. I just wanted to be there to support them. And when I got the money, I just wanted to be able to fund whatever kind of vision that we had, be able to give us what kind of platform that we had. And that was it. I didn't want to be in the studio. I couldn't stand being in the studio and listen from the concept to the end of the song. I couldn't do none of that kind of stuff, but they was great at it. And it made sense. We just hit a point to where it was just too much street shit involved. And we got a point to where we was butting heads with a certain people. I didn't want to get into that certain people, and it became too dangerous. It's where we out there doing stuff that was going to send us to jail.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So then now after the music thing, what are you transitioning to after that?
My family. That was kind of like helped me wrap everything else up, because we needed that room, because once I got with my wife, who's now my wife, we needed that room because she had gotten pregnant in the first year. So we packed up the studio. And once we packed up the studio, I was kind of walking away.
I got you. You talk about your wife, and I myself always see you out and about, wife, kids, the consummate family man.
Appreciate that.
How much does that matter to you, and how much does that matter to you, and do you realize that maybe a young brother from your neighborhood or just from any of these surrounding parts may be watching you and saying, man, let me take notes of how Jamar's moving with his family and whatnot, and maybe that's how I may want to do it in the future.
I do notice, and I do pay attention to that, and I am cognizant of that, and that's why I try to make sure that I put myself out there the right way. You know what I'm saying? I just try to live right. It's easy when you just living right. You know what I'm saying? I love my family to death. You know what I'm saying? And I just try to celebrate life every day. You know what I'm saying? Every moment that I can have where I can celebrate it with my family, I'm doing that. And I do know that people watching. That's why I do put stuff up on social media. Like my thing is like not to go on social media to show everybody that we had a great vacation and this, that, and the third, or to rub nothing in nobody's face. I know that if somebody else saw it and this person know me, they know the transition is possible. They know going to these places is possible. They know attaining a certain amount of stuff is possible. And they know that I'm available every day. They could touch me every day and all that kind of stuff. And not that I got nothing super duper big and glorious and all that, but just attaining a stable family is something that some people would just never be able to do.
And a lot of people want to. I'ma just speak for myself. I know that when I see you doing your thing, see you make a post on the socials, see you on a vacation, I see it as, yo, first off, that's a black man from the hood in the city, didn't grow up with much. We grow up in an environment where there ain't a bunch of family structure. You don't see 9, 10, 11 families in even one building, let alone one block. So now to see you moving and grooving with your family, honoring your family, honoring your wife, honoring your children, I just see it as, yo, that's a hell of an example to set. I don't see it as you trying to flaunt, shine on nobody or nothing. I see it as you setting an example for those that are watching you, those that even your own peers. You may inspire a peer of yours to say, you know what, man, let me hold this family down. Let me get this thing together, man. Maybe wifey been giving me chance after chance after chance. Let me get my act together. So that's how I
appreciate it. But you know what, too? It's hard, too. You know what I mean? It's hard because when a lot of people watching and stuff like that, it's not like you have to try to live a perfect life, because I ain't trying to live no perfect life and all that kind of stuff. But I know that people are watching, so you have to hold yourself accountable. You know what I mean? So you have to follow up on some of the things that you're supposed to do. But for me, raising a family is easy. Like over the course of the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks or whatever, we probably literally had like 10 different nieces and nephews and stuff like that at our crib.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's like we try to put ourselves in like a love environment. You know what I'm saying? Because it's easier to just put yourself in an environment when you spreading love instead of hate, or trying to teach the youth how to build themselves up and stuff like that. You know, so that stuff is the kind of stuff I wear on my sleeve because I'm proud of it. Even when we was in Turks and Caicos, and even my wife, she was like, man, you always telling people about me being a nurse or something like that. And I'm like, like, you can't, like, do you understand how proud I am of you being a nurse? I could tell somebody that you're an ER nurse.
Shining.
My wife is an ER nurse.
Shining.
You know what I'm saying? I could even brag that my kids, both my daughters, have 96 GPA in school. Like the thing is, and it's not to rub that stuff in people's face, but it's just living right. And it's just hold people accountable. It's just when you living in front of your kids, it's just do your stuff the right way. Don't be no bullshitter.
Yeah.
You know, when we have our situation with WT and all that kind of stuff, and with our nonprofit and all that kind of stuff, that stuff was all out of pocket, regardless of how it ever looked to people and all that kind of stuff. And people would even be so crazy to say, oh, like these dudes is drug dealing, or these dudes is doing this, that, and the third or whatever. everything that we ever saw us with in WT or whatever came out of pockets, out of my pockets, out of my brother's pockets, 100%, except for when we got to deal with Joe Cruz and them with Adidas Legacy program.
Right.
Anything outside of that was 100% out of pocket, and we wasn't getting paid nothing.
Nothing.
How can you?
Nah, I know what y'all.
I don't
was
even
doing
want.
over there.
I don't even want to get
Y'all was
into
giving
it.
them kids a lot of love. I remember.
And it was like even way bigger than just basketball.
Yeah.
It was the fact that a lot of the kids that we took on was just some of the kids that people even thought was untouchable.
Right.
It was even kids that some of these kids they burnt their third, fourth bridge already.
Right.
And we like, nah, that's my nephew. Nah. Even when other kids was trying to come into the school and all that kind of stuff, and we like, all right, well, we bring you into school, but you're going to have to play with this group of kids. It wasn't like you're going to replace them. It's like, no, these are my kids. Mm-hmm. As dysfunctional, whatever you think that they may be, like, look at them, they were growing, they were progressing and stuff under our tutelage, and that's what we appreciated. That kind of stuff. It's just showing love and watching the youth progress and just, you know, keep on doing that day after day after day. You know, that's all I want to do.
Righteous. How involved are you in the game today?
Basketball?
Now? Yeah, in the game of basketball.
Honestly,
today.
I don't. Man, I live my basketball stuff through my brother. My brother, he do his stuff on the internet and all that kind of stuff now, but I'm never able to watch a basketball game. Like even most of the time, even at home, even when the NBA season is on, I can't really focus because I have my work, my wife. Like our schedules are different because I'm an engineer supervisor at ABC News, so I'm always on the front line for like breaking news and all this kind of stuff. My wife is a ER nurse, so even over the course of COVID, we never got a break. We was always on the front line and all that kind of stuff. So there's always, you know, always some shit going on, man.
I got you. Now I know you say you don't get to catch too many games, but I'm pretty sure you catch a little snippet here and there. I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on how the game has evolved since your playing days? Is it exciting to watch, or do you dislike it? A lot of people from your era will say, you know, threes and layups, threes and dunks. I'm tired of seeing it. But your average casual fan loves seeing it, and it boosts the ratings.
Right.
It's why they put in these certain rules to boost the ratings. So where's your stance on it, being a former player yourself?
I mean, the thing is, the game got to evolve. So I'm okay with it being where it is or whatever, because it calls people to work on their skill set if you want to be efficient at playing that kind of game. The threes and dunks and all that kind of stuff, but more specifically with the threes and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that I really dislike about this day and age, about the kids, is that there's way too much homeboy stuff. It's like, yo, dog, it's like, why don't y'all be cool after the game? It's like, I even used to tell even some of the kids in our program is that me and my brother, we had a full court in my room when we was growing up. Our room wasn't that big, but we had a full court, like, right? And one day my brother had point game, and he was getting ready to beat me, and I stepped on his sock, right? And when I stepped on his sock, he came down, he broke his wrist in the room, right? He broke his wrist, right? And my thing is, like, even to this day, I'll be like, yo, I feel bad that I broke his wrist, but I didn't lose. You know what I'm saying? I didn't lose. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, even with my brother, even when we played out here in Bill Robb and all that kind of stuff, if we lost a game, after the game, I was going this way, he was going this way, and we might have been going to the same crib. But nowadays, it's like these kids be they're like too cool for school now. Everybody want to have one of lime green sneakers and all that when they do their thing. Like, like that's like, you know.
That's the new day. Along with the efficiency chase in the game and everybody chasing these analytical numbers, you also have the uptick of skill trainers and instructors and developers. I myself, being in that lane for like the last 10 years, I represent that faction of the game. I want to ask you, What's your thoughts on that? Because nowadays, almost every kid has a trainer. Parks are empty. We're in an empty park right now. Parks are empty everywhere. But every kid basically specializes. If they're a hooper, they specialize. They don't play football like you did. They don't play baseball. They don't play hockey. They don't swim. They don't do any of that. It's just them and a trainer multiple times a week. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, if you have a good trainer, I like it because you get a chance to work on different nuances of the game. That whereas if you was playing AAU, it's like AAU sometimes it's very little D, all that kind of stuff or whatever. So you could easily pick up bad habits. But when you working with a trainer and stuff like that, you fine-tuning on different aspects of your game that you have to get better at or whatever, and you being intentional about getting better at specific things. But one of the things I don't like is that some of these trainers be like where do you find some of these people? You know what I mean?
A lot of scamming and gimmicky stuff going on in that.
It's like first of all, like you looking at the trainer, it's like first of all, you took way too many dribbles to get to the basket.
Absolutely.
It's like there's no way you'd be able to get to the basket with that many dribbles.
Absolutely.
And then it's like you could shake anybody when there's no defense on the court, but it's like, would you do that move in front of a defender?
And the help side on each side.
It's like it's like you always teaching all this fancy spin dribble and all that kind of stuff, exposing the ball and all that kind of stuff, and you teaching these kids that, and these kids out here hot dogging, looking terrible.
And their parents paying for it.
Paying top dollar for it. and they doubling up because they getting likes and they getting YouTube hits and all that kind of stuff on your dollar.
Right.
They just trying to get fly on you. It ain't even about them training you and teaching you anything. It's about them showing off and getting off. You know, it's like I respect the people who deserve to be respected, but a lot of these kids out here, they just need to go out there with themselves in a basketball in the rim and just shoot the ball. Work on your hand. Act like there's a defender in front of you and stuff like that. Watch basketball games. You could go on YouTube and you could pull up different workout regimens and all that kind of stuff where you don't have to be paying this dude. And then the thing is, you're going to be paying this dude, and then this dude going to show you how to dribble the basketball a little bit, and then as soon as you get a little bit of limelight, he going to be like, he your handler.
All day long.
Like, you can't even imagine how many people be like talking his nephew and all this kind of stuff with the people and all that. And I'm like, I could really call some of these kids my nephew and all that kind of stuff. And like, y'all dudes is like weird. You know what I mean? Some of these dudes be like weird.
Trying to live through
kids. It be like a weird obsession. Hanging with the kids and all that. Like, you smoking with the kids and you fun timing with the kids. And
I try to tell dudes that all the time. Like, man, we not peers. We're not peers with these youngins. Even when I was in my early 20s, even I started doing this stuff in my late teens, 19. I'm not hanging with the 16-year-old that I just coached. Even though we're only 3 years apart, we're different. We're not peers. We're not buddies. And then the kid can't respect you no more either once he see you hanging with him, smoking with him, you frequent the same places they frequent.
Exactly.
They can't respect you. There's no line drawn in the sand anymore. So I definitely feel you on that. This year, your alma mater had arguably the most legendary NCAA tournament run in history. So, as an alum, how proud were you to watch that unfold?
I was there going crazy.
Did you get to watch it live? You went to or at home?
I was gonna go to watch it live, but they could only promise me one ticket.
Okay.
So I wasn't going there by myself, and I'm such a family man. I didn't mind. I was almost like double dipping because I could still take care of my family. Then I could drive to Jersey City, 20 minutes from where I'm at, and then I can get there with the fans. And I have my jersey. And man, Ajax put together my jersey for me. I had my jersey going crazy. So and it was also an opportunity for me to be able to go and be able to see my Hall of Fame stuff up front. Because for a long time I didn't go back to the school, not for nothing, but just because I was busy. But I had my Hall of Fame plaque, and they just did the gym over and all that kind of stuff. So I got a chance to take in it different, take my little brother. I took my little brother to the joint and just let them feel the campus. Took my man Boom with me, just let them feel the campus, feel the energy of the campus. And we just kept winning. And it was exciting. I was there going crazy. And even what was super crazy for me was that the first game of the tournament was against Kentucky and was against my man and was against my man who his son is the starting point guard at Kentucky. So even when my brother was like, yo, they play against Kentucky, I'm like, damn. I'm like Xavier gonna wash him. I'm like, damn, it's gonna get kind of crazy. And he like, yo, give him a chance. He like, you know, and even me, I had to take a step back and say, yo, you know what? Let me check him out. Knocked off Kentucky. Then, you know, I was at every game I was there going crazy.
Right. So now obviously they made it to the Elite Eight. Was there any game of all those victories that you thought was meant a little bit more than any of the others? Was it the Kentucky one, the Purdue one?
It was for me, it was the Kentucky game. Obviously, because that Kentucky game allowed them to believe that they deserved to be there. So once they beat Kentucky, it wasn't like you're not a surprise to nobody no more. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like you beat Kentucky. Kentucky spent most of the year as like top 5.
Four, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Top 5. And y'all went and beat them handily. It wasn't even like
it wasn't even a nail biter.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh. So every day I showed up with my brother. We expected to be back the next day to watch another game. You know, and I loved St. Peter's for what it was, and even for where it is at right now. And then even another thing that was so great about that moment for me is that even what's the name was on the team? Juju was on the team. Yeah. Juju was on the team, right? The 2 twins was on the team.
Right.
I remember when the twins was in high school, and me and my brother used to try to when they was in like 8th grade. Me and my brother used to try to recruit them to see if we can eventually get them to Watley when they was playing for Heck.
Right.
So it was like to see them on that team and see Juju on that team doing well. Dallas was the year before, and Dallas was on that team.
KC,
and then
be a city kid.
And then KC, and then we got Shy as the coach.
Right.
And then it's like me and Shy, we grew up Mustangs. We grew up playing with the Mustangs or whatever. Then we grew up playing against each other and stuff like that in AAU. And now Sha is coaching. And then we played against each other with St. Peter Seton Hall for 4 years. Mm-hmm. And now Sha is leading them to the promised land. It's like, yo, and doing it in a fashion that's so amazing, yo. It's so relatable to these kids. That was like a moment that it was like the world needed. The world needed that moment. Like even now, like I think it'd be so crazy to where I saw St. Peter's on that kind of stage or whatever, and I'm like to think like I was kind of like catalyst of that.
Yeah.
And people that was around knew my dedication to those 4 years or whatever, and even at that moment they reached back out to me and was like, yo, bro, like you helped start this.
Yeah, definitely.
I left the light on for Kiki.
Definitely.
Kiki went through there and went crazy. I remember we went to one game, and we at the game and we watching. I see Kiki, he got that dumb big joint up in the gym, just crazy big. And so I'm like, yo, that joint is mean to him. And he gonna try to be humble with me, and he gonna tell me, nah, that was because of this, that, and the third or whatever. I said, yo, bro, yo, you could tell somebody else all that stuff, bro. You got there because you went bananas in this joint.
Right.
I wasn't around to like come to the games and all that, but I said you went absolutely bananas, and I was so proud. Kiki right from up the hill. Mm-hmm. Even when we had showstoppers here, Kiki was playing showstoppers here. But it's like Kiki went to Rice.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like, but even with I don't know if he saw me make those moves. I'm not saying that he came to Rice because I came to Rice. I'm not saying he came to St. Peter's because I came there. But we were like similar in Rice, right? And then when he went to St. Peter's, he blew that joint open. Yeah. They gave him the opportunity. He went stupid with it. And I was so proud. So proud. Humble too, though. Yeah. Not even like brash or being like, oh, it's all about me. You know what I mean? And I was proud of him. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to tell him, like, yo, dog, that's up there because you deserved it to be up there. Before anybody else. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, even where people would say, well, and I even saw it in the joint, not even for nothing. I'm not even throwing no shots. But I even saw another 23 up in the joint. I'm like, I don't know who that 23 is. I was asking people, like, who's this 23 up on the joint? But he's not a Hall of Famer. What is he?
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I wasn't offended because it's never about me. But I'm just like, if you could have picked the number 23, you couldn't pick the Hall of Famer?
We're gonna have to holler at St.Peter to figure out what's going on in the rafters.
Yo, we.
My last question for you before we wrap this up is your thoughts on name, image, and likeness finally becoming a thing.
Man, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was on one of the NCAA steering committees when I was in school, even as a freshman. I was on the NCAA steering committee that was part of the catalyst to get this stuff going. We were fighting for image and likeness when I was in school as a freshman. On the NCAA steering committee, it was only probably between like 8 and 10 of us. And it was like with the athletic directors, it was like prominent people. And me, like, I just raised my hand one day and said, I want to do that or whatever, because I was adamant about wanting to push that forward or whatever. And I was part of the original group that got that started. And now, years later, this was when I was in college, that was in 95?
Right. Freshman year, 95, yeah.
And now that just came through for which
nearly 30 years.
Yeah, but
later.
I was part of the original team that was sitting at the table talking about that. I don't know, part of the original team that I was abreast of from the NCAA steering committee standpoint. They put that together so that we can try to advocate for that. And it came through to fruition now, and I love it. I think it's a great deal. I think it's even dope. I even see Molly now. Yeah, Molly I was dating.
Yep.
Man, yo, that story is so amazing to me.
Man, it's a lot of kids that, a lot of dudes would have earned some crazy bread in their era. Like Harlem kid, if Isaiah Washington grew up just 4 or 5 years later, the amount of money that he would have been able to bring in with that Jelly Fam thing, him and his homeboys, ridiculous because of their social platform and how much eyes they generate. I mean, how much attention they generate.
But not for nothing. Not for nothing. The people that was around them, they were supposed to handle that differently.
Yeah.
They let the kids lead that instead of making. And you saw the business grab. You saw the business opportunity for that. Instead of letting the kids lead and it just fizzle out or whatever, they were supposed to, like Nike. When Nike started printing up Jelly Fam shirts and all that, you got to go to Nike and be like, yo, what's up? I got to cut a check. You printed the shirt already. It ain't no, oh, I'm thinking about, or this kind of stuff. It's like, I just wish somebody would have did a more business grab on that or whatever, because these kids, they could have been good right now.
I agree with you, man.
You know?
I agree with you.
But Isaiah is a great kid or whatever, and not to slight them or whatever, because we used to even bring Isaiah to Watley. We used to work on Isaiah. When his senior year, we was trying to get Isaiah to Watley. But we didn't want to interrupt what was going on at St. Ray's because he had a good flow there. But we was gonna bring him over to Watley and just let him go loose. Harlem kid, go crazy with it. You know what I mean?
I feel you.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much it, man. I appreciate you sitting down with us today, man. Appreciate you answering these questions. Learned a lot. Any final thoughts you want to leave us with, or anything else? Any shout outs?
I mean, the one thing that you're gonna look forward to, I just got my real estate license too. So that's just another spin that I'm even putting towards. So even, look for that.
That's impressive.
Look for me as a realtor in Jersey. I'm gonna spread out and do New York and Philly, New York and Pennsylvania as well. But that's my next agenda that's up.
Impressive, man. We'll keep on putting it together. Post career days, post playing days, definitely continue to look impressive. And as you go into your next phase of life, man, and I gotta congratulate you on that too, real estate license.
Thank you,
man. God bless the rest of this journey for you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.